How painful will a mother who loses her child be? Soo Hyun's 7-year-old son was hit by an accident and fled. Yet the law is on his side. Soo Hyun lost her most beloved son. But the criminal only received a 2-year suspended prison sentence, not accepting this fact. Soo Hyun and his wife are determined to avenge themselves and find justice for their son. Soo Hyun is a writer. She is the first Korean writer to excellently win the Nobel Prize in Literature. An ironic fate caused her to get pregnant 4 times. It was a lot of trouble to give birth to a son. A happy life lasts 7 years. When she thought that this life would always be so beautiful and happy, an accident struck. Early that morning, Soo Hyun was invited to attend the book signing ceremony. Only her husband, Soo Ho, stayed at home to take care of her children, and in the past, Soo Ho resolutely gave up her job as a reporter. Because he could not stand the false reports of his superiors and violations of the law. That day, Soo Ho suddenly felt that his son was feverish. Immediately called his wife to ask her where she stored the antipyretic medicine. Despite being told to plant carefully, Soo Hyun still couldn't rest assured. So she took a leave of absence and took a taxi and returned home. When the son saw his mother return, he immediately rushed into her arms, and Soo Hyun felt bored that the fever was gone. At this time, she was relieved again, and then went inside to store her luggage. But as soon as she entered, she noticed her husband's evasive gaze, seemingly hiding something. She snatched it to check and found that it was a sedative. It turns out that after coughing after quitting work, she always takes medication to stabilize her mood and emotions. As a wife, she didn't know her husband's condition until today. Soo Hyun felt a little sorry. She hugged her husband and ate him suddenly. Hearing the sound of dogs barking in the yard, Soo Hyun immediately ran out. Then it was discovered that the tumor was missing and the door was open. The couple realized that something was wrong and immediately split up to look for their son. But walking around the whole neighborhood and not finding any food, Soo Hyun passed by an intersection. Accidentally seeing a shoe on the side of the road, Soo Hyun's spirit was no longer calm enough. She cried and hurriedly ran to find her child, but in the evening, she still couldn't find him, and the police didn't have any clues. At that moment, she saw that there were policemen on the side of the road, and a lot of people were standing there. Her mind was completely blank, and she walked slowly over. But the closer she got to her, the more uneasy she felt. A boy wearing a shoe that was mentioned out of the crowd. That's right, the boy is Soo Hyun's missing son. At this time, he fell into a deep coma and was taken to the emergency room immediately afterwards. Soo Hyun's hands kept shaking. It seemed that she had forgotten how to cry, helplessly waiting outside the door of the operating room. Not long after, Soo Ho and his sister and mother all went to the hospital. 2 hours later, the doctor came out and informed the family that they had tried their best, but that the child's condition was very bad. Hopefully the family can prepare for the worst. If only the tumor could be taken to the hospital earlier, the possibility of being saved would also be much greater. Soo Ho collapsed and fell to the ground, begging the doctor again and again to save her son. However, it was like a boat had been built, and it was no longer possible to save the board. Because it was so heartbreaking that Soo Hyun wanted to cry, but couldn't, she remembered the happy moments. Like the first time my son laughed at me, the first time my son knew how to stand up, the first time you get sick, or the first time you change your teeth, and many other firsts. But now her son is in the intensive care unit. On the body are all kinds of catheters and ventilators, so she asked a nurse for permission for a mother to cut her son's nails. Soo Hyun shed tears while praying for a miracle to happen. However, what she responded to was an alarm sound from the heart rate monitor. After the doctor's examination, the tumor was no longer breathing, even though there were thousands and thousands of times she did not want to. But Soo Hyun still had to put on a towel for her son. At Gana's funeral, Soo Hyun hugged her child's bones tightly. The promise between mother and daughter kept rewinding in her mind. The promise that no one can let go of the other party first. Soo Ho knows that his wife is very miserable. But he could only tremble and grab the urn in her hand, give it to the grave to be buried in the cemetery. In the moment of filling the ground, Soo Hyun had long cried until she almost fainted. That evening the couple returned home. They saw at the scene where their son had been beaten to death. People gave a lot of gifts to remember the boy. Soo Hyun knelt on the ground and soared over the line of the body that the police had drawn. Painful emotions incessantly surged. She could only lie down where her son had been hit by the car. Not long after, the driver who caused the accident could not withstand the pressure of public opinion and chose to confess. According to Korean law, causing an accident to a child will be punished very severely. However, in the first trial, the doctor in charge of treatment said, "A traffic accident caused a brain hemorrhage in the tendon, requiring surgery as soon as possible. If it is possible to take the boy to the hospital immediately, surely the chances of being saved are very high and the boy will not have to die." But the defense lawyer objected. He argued that the defendant wanted to take him to the hospital sooner, so he carried the boy into the car. But suddenly the boy stopped breathing. The defendant was extremely scared, so he left the boy and ran away. After that, because he felt that his behavior was wrong, he voluntarily confessed. In addition, the defense lawyer also wants to ask the victim's mother to appear in court after obtaining consent. Soo Hyun stood in front of the horseshoe, and the defense lawyer asked her the day of the accident. Was her son expelled? Moreover, the mother is she who is also on a business trip. Soo Hyun replied that her son was not sick before her business trip. The defense attorney asked again where she was and where her son was when the accident occurred. The defense lawyer concluded that it was because the mother was irresponsible to abandon her son, who was left alone in the yard. Soo Zion didn't even have time to explain. He asked how the boy usually went out. Soo Hyun tried to recall what happened on the day of the incident. But she didn't remember whether she closed the door or not. She could only answer that she didn't remember. And this is the answer that the defense lawyer wants. He attributes the cause of the incident. It is because a mother like her does not take good care of her sick son and does not take measures in case of emergency. The prosecutor immediately objected, insisting that these issues were not related to the case and were supported by the judge. However, Soo Hyun saw the defense lawyer whispering something in the ear of the perpetrator. In the days of waiting for the verdict, Soo Zion could only wash her face with tears, and her cough was not much better. When he filled out the application for a death certificate for his son, and was so heartbroken that he couldn't hold the pen. Not long after the final verdict arrived, the judge based on the relevant legal provisions. The defendant was declared innocent due to insufficient evidence to accuse him. However, after synthesizing the testimony of witnesses and other evidence, the judge said that the defendant had violated the law on aggravation for special crimes and the crime of causing an accident and fleeing leading to death. But because the defendant confessed and repented along with consideration at the time of the crime, the defendant panicked and did not intentionally cause the accident. The defendant was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison and suspended for 4 years. After hearing this, Suho almost went crazy and rushed to risk his life with the defendant, but the defendant, after seeing it, he bowed down in front of everyone and pretended to admit his guilt, and finally was kicked out of the trial because he was too excited. And Soohyun sat in place with blank eyes, and it wasn't until the evening that she regained her senses. At this time, the phone on the ground suddenly received a message. She picked it up and took a look at the phone that her husband dropped, and the content of the message was an address. At the same time, the driver of the accident called a mysterious person, said that he did what this man said, and was acquitted. And this person is the former mayor of the county. Soohyun, based on the address in the message, blocked the driver's path causing the accident, asking him to apologize to his son. However, he gave her a business card, asked her how much money she wanted to save from his company, and saw that Soohyun refused to accept it. He immediately pinned the business card to the photo of his son Soohyun, and seeing that Soohyun refused to let go, he directly knocked her to the ground. Soohyun immediately stood up and grabbed the perpetrator's ankle, making him so angry that he accidentally revealed the truth. Because of this incident, his reputation was greatly affected. After calming down, the perpetrator asked Soohyun not to make a big deal. After all, the person who is alive must continue to live. Hearing this, Soo-yeon smiled, and she herself even dreamed that the culprit still had a salary. So she picked up her son's photo, resolutely sat in the car, and started the car without hesitation. If conscience and the law cannot judge the wicked, then she is a mother herself. She had to do something for her son who had been wrongfully stabbed. So she moved the name of the perpetrator on the day of the sentence. After being arrested, she admitted that her behavior was wrong. But if given the opportunity to choose again, she would still do so. Therefore, she did not ask the judge to consider reducing the sentence. After the incident became widespread, she was a famous female writer. Soo-yeon has become a rat who is hated by the world. No one wants to find out the truth of the case. All they knew was that she had murdered, was an emotionless criminal, and even called for an increase in punishment. However, Soo-ho knows that his wife has been wronged and vows to find justice for her. Soo-yeon was sentenced to 7 years in prison. After losing her child, she seemed to have nothing left to cherish. Soo-ho was much better. For the rest of his life, he had to live in pain and sadness. A month later, there was still a love scene sending a letter to Soo-yeon. However, she is still not the same except for the pain of losing her son, squatting in the corner every day. Even when her husband came to visit her, she refused to meet. Soo-ho also had no choice but to ask the prison guard to give his wife a bundle of volunteer letters. Then secretly sent the letter, the papers filled with nostalgia. The content of the letter was that I know how painful it will be to see you now. But be patient and wait for me. I will try my best to hope that you believe in me. Soo-ho had indeed done exactly what he had said in the letter, had collected documents related to the case. The perpetrator's confession, along with suspicious evidence that the police did not reveal to the court. It turned out that the perpetrator was drunk on the day of the incident. But the concentration was only 0.03. Soo-ho discovered the hotel, where the perpetrator had been drinking. At the same time, he used his trick to get the video in the surveillance camera on the day of the crime. Surveillance video recorded the scene of the person drinking with the perpetrator, former Mayor Kim. On the other hand, in the process of judgment enforcement, the indispensable job is to wear clothes. That day when Soo-yeon was wearing clothes and suddenly saw a pattern on the shirt, just like the picture on the shirt that her son wore, she couldn't help but remember that happy time. I don't know if she was distracted or wanted to punish herself because the parachute stabbed through the palm of her hand. But she didn't have the slightest expression and she didn't even raise her eyebrows. Fortunately, her curious friend found out, and the prison guard promptly took her to the hospital. While in a coma, Soo-yeon seemed to have returned to that day. After welcoming her mother and daughter neighbors into the yard and closing the door with her injured hand, the doctor informs Soo-yeon's mother that because the case has hurt Soo-yeon so much, causing her to suffer from severe anxiety and depression, there is no mother in the world who does not love her child. Soo-yeon's mother immediately rushed into her daughter's room. She was afraid that if she continued like this, her daughter would get into trouble. But Soo-yeon kept repeating it. It was obvious that she had closed the door. If she could confirm again that her son would not die, she painfully blamed herself. At the same time, according to the evidence collected, Soo-ho also guessed 78 parts. Defense lawyer and former Mayor Kim Jun are close friends. The perpetrator and former Mayor Kim Jun have a business relationship. The judge hearing the case also has a close relationship with former Mayor Kim Jun. That is, the driver, the defense lawyer, and the judge, all three have a close relationship with each other. From the beginning, the trial was not fair, and the person who could influence this case knew without thinking. It is the former mayor and current representative of the United Democratic Party of Korea, Kim Jun. At this moment, a strange phone call came, and immediately afterwards, Soo-ho arrived at Kim Jun's office. It turned out that Kim Jun wanted to know why Soo-ho was investigating him, and Soo-ho didn't hesitate to go straight to the point. Kim Jun used his connections to help a small construction company owner. The purpose is to cover up previous corruption. Since the original project was the one who was in charge of the project, Soo-ho had already lost everything. Now he's not afraid of anything. He must demand justice for his wife and children and expose Kim Jun's corruption. However, after hearing Soo-ho's words, Kim Jun didn't panic at all. but asked the secretary to show Suho a video. The content of the video was the surveillance camera. In front of the gate of the Suho house on the day of the incident, Kim Jun threatened the Suho. He must know what he should and shouldn't do. Staying in the cave because Soo Hyung's hand was injured, it was not convenient to work. My friend To Hyung Ja has always taken the initiative to help her from heavy tasks such as carrying water, to light things like drying clothes because Hyung Ja feels like herself before. Time passed quickly. Under the care of Hyung Ja, So Hyung's hand had almost recovered. Because she wanted to thank Hyung Ja, she gave Hyung Ja a new pair of glasses. The friendship between the two is also close and also gradually deepens on Suho's side after being threatened by Kim Jun. In order to protect his wife's safety, he agreed to sign a confidentiality agreement. At the same time, get a good job and the opportunity to go abroad for development. Soon after, Suho's mother went to Soo Hyung's mother, hoping that she could understand for her son. The implication is that the daughter-in-law has to go to jail. Don't involve her husband. The next day, Soo Hyung's mother and sister visit Soo Hyung, and the sister is not careful to tell her about it, and told her that she absolutely could not let go of her brother-in-law's hand. Otherwise, after being released from prison, she knows how to live. Actually, Soo Hyung had also thought about this matter, but she still hadn't made up her mind. Not long after, Suho was able to visit his wife. As soon as Soo Hyung sat down, immediately asked Suho not to come here again. Today was the last time the two of them met. She didn't want to see her husband sad because of her, but Suho told her not to think like that. He just wants to be by his wife's side and go through this difficult time with her. However, Soo Hyung told him to take a closer look. She was a murderer. If you have to bear the name of having a wife who is a murderer, then his future will be nothing. So she asked for a divorce and didn't give him a chance. Resolutely turned his back and left, but after the end of this expedition, Suho breathed a sigh of relief again, as if he had let go of a burden. Actually, Soo Hyung did it because she didn't want to hinder her husband's future. That night, she took off her camouflage, hid in a corner, and cried until tears welled up in her eyes. Hyung Rae saw this and sat down next to her. And Ui said that it was good for her to be able to cry, for years passed quickly. That day, Hyung Rae was talking to Soo Hyung. In fact, she always had a wish. She hopes that those who are unhappy because of her can find happiness that belongs to them. Then it turned out that Hyung Rae had cancer, and it had reached a stage where it could no longer be treated. But she was not sad to think that she was leaving like that, which was the price she had to pay for what she had caused. The reason she was frank with Soo Hyung was because she didn't want her to face the separation without a single bit of data. Moreover, Hyung Rae also had something to ask her for help. She gave Soo Hyung a notebook. In it, there is a record of an arson. Then Hyung turns out to find out that her husband has a mistress. In a fit of rage, she wanted to burn her husband and her mistress, so she set fire to the house. But unexpectedly, the fire was so big, the fire spread to other neighbors' houses. She later learned that she had killed 3 innocent people. Only one boy was saved. Every day, he prays, hoping that the child can continue to live resiliently. And started writing to the boy, now maybe she can apologize to him directly. In her heart, she felt extremely ashamed and guilty. So she hopes that after Soo Hyung is released from prison, she can pass on the letter to the boy on her behalf. Soo Hyung promised her friend to come out, but not long after, Hyung Rae died. Blindfolded in 2021, Kim Jun because of participating in the election, but asked the secretary to continue to look for the weaknesses of other opponents. Among them, Counselor Choi not only has a high support rate, but also a person of integrity without the slightest flaw. So the secretary ordered Mr. Hyung's car to quietly investigate the dirty things behind the Choi counselor. Because Councilmember Choi's wife is a principal and runs a school. After receiving the task, Mr. Hyung's car immediately took action. He quietly sneaked into the campus. Then, when the security guard didn't notice, he broke into the teaching building, goes straight into the electrical room in the basement, skillfully unlocked and discovered a lot of valuables. Then he went into the principal's office and found the ledger. corresponding to the school's money laundering actions. At that moment, the security guard detected the flashing in the room, so he immediately called more people to come here. When they opened the door to the principal's office, Mr. Hyung's car had escaped through the window. The next day, Soo Hyung was released. She wished her husband could come and pick her up. However, the reality is completely opposite to expectations. So she got on the bus and went to her son's grave. Incidentally, Mr. Hyung's car was also driving a motorcycle in its direction. But neither of them saw each other. Soo Hyung hugged her son's tombstone tightly. I don't know how long it took to be woken up by the rain. Suddenly, there was an umbrella over her head, and the person holding the umbrella was Mr. Hyung's car. Soo Hyung immediately reacted, and she got up and prepared to leave. Before leaving, she looked at her son's photo again. Then, he went down the mountain with tears in his eyes. Mr. Hyung glanced at the name on the tombstone, immediately chased after, and ate Soo Hyung. The fate of the two is also connected from here. After visiting her son, Soo Hyung returned home. After the doorbell rang, the mother with white hair was extremely happy. Since her daughter had finally returned, Soo Hyung hadn't even had time to say anything. She couldn't wait to hug her daughter in her arms. The mother and daughter couldn't help but burst into tears after a moment of emotional relief. She gratefully wiped the tears from her daughter's cheeks while telling her that everything was over. There is nothing more to be able to go home safely, but she is still worried, afraid that their daughters will drown in the pain of losing their son. Even because of this, extreme thoughts arose. Although no one can fill the void of losing a son, but she is grateful that her daughter will not forget that she still has a mother and sister. Soo Hyung promised her that she would never do anything stupid. On the other hand, Soo Hyung's younger sister is Yeo Ji. Rely on your own efforts to become an excellent jewelry designer. Actually, she is not the biological child of Mrs. Grace. It is an orphan child who was adopted but was closer to Soo Hyung than his siblings. The next day, Soo Hyung went to the police station to look for information that the boy had survived the fire. But because the police station changed addresses, many records were lost. So she also couldn't find any useful information. In the days that followed, she went to a neighbor's house near the scene of the incident to inquire. But there was still no harvest. That day, Soo Hyung went to the welfare community and was given the address of the psychotherapist for the boy that year. She immediately turned to a psychology professor. However, the psychology professor only remembered that the boy was always on the lookout for everything, very afraid of fire and suffering from insomnia, eventually under the boy's refusal. Psychological counseling also had to stop. In terms of contact information, doctors have to turn over documents from 10 years ago to find them. When leaving the psychology professor's workplace, Yuz called Soo Hyung and made an appointment to meet tonight. Yuz hears that Suho's ex-brother-in-law is about to return home, so he wants to ask Soo Hyung if he plans to meet Suho again. It turned out that during the period of time he was executed, Soo Hyung asked Yuz to file for divorce from her husband. Although her sister didn't want to, she was forced to do so. Because Suho is the person she loves the most, it's uncertain when Soo Hyung has returned to her old home. She was about to turn her back and leave, but she could hear her son's laughter. The happy past of the family of three suddenly came to mind. Soo Seong couldn't help but enter the house. Everything was still the same as before. Each item contains memories of her husband and son. Life is inherently full of such happy laughter. But now it is covered with only a white cloth, like a mist that can never be dispelled. Suddenly, the figure of a son seemed to appear in front of his eyes. Soo Hong didn't care if it was real or dreamy. She put down her backpack and chased after her son. But as soon as he entered, he only saw that the room was empty with nothing. Soo Seong opened the wardrobe her son used to use and looked at the clothes neatly arranged inside. So her son had never left, and now she couldn't hold back anymore and cried out loud. The next day, Soo Seong woke up on the ground as she adjusted her mood to leave. The door closed, and there was a sound of locking, and then she was sure. At the very moment of the crime, she closed the door because she had heard the exact same sound. At this moment, the psychology professor called, and she found the boy's address. So the trend is based on the given address and finds out the boy's whereabouts. But unfortunately, the other party has gone out to work and is not at home. On the other hand, Mr. Hung's car is watching the counselor. Arriving at a villa in the mountains with strict guards until late at night, he had secretly captured the evidence of these people's burials. After returning to work, Mr. Hung's car was treating his wounds when he suddenly encountered a trend. As soon as they met, they both realized that the other was the person they had met at the cemetery that day. So the two sides are not much embarrassed or strange, but the trend still doesn't know where to start. First, she took the apology letters that Hung Ra had written over the years and gave them to Mr. Hung's car. Then recounted how much guilt Mrs. Hung Ra felt. With the same heart, he wanted to capture this mistake of hers. But Mr. Hung's car did not want to hear so much. Because after losing his parents, his life was extremely miserable. Moreover, he thought that an apology could not bring the person back to life. Mr. Hung asked Sue Hung if she knew what her actions meant to her now. Then he got up and left without waiting for the other party to react. After returning home, Sue Hung remembered the promise she made to Hung Ra when she was alive. So every morning she stood in front of Mr. Hung's garage. Wait until evening when he gets home safely and returns to his room to rest. She kept repeating this action for several days in a row. In the process, she did not disturb the life of Mr. Hung's car, but only protected him like a family member. That night, Sue Hung waited forever and still did not see Mr. Hung's car coming home. Just as she was confused about to leave, then suddenly discovered that there was a traffic accident ahead, and Mr. Hung's car is looking for the relics left by his mother. But the police insisted on taking him back for investigation. After Mr. Hung's car finished taking the bow and prepared to look for his mother's relics, then I found out that the trend had been found. Her rope was covered with mud, and Mr. Hung's car retrieved the relics without saying a word. On the contrary, Su Xiang told him she herself had endured the same pain as him. She had lost her most precious son. She wanted the murderer to apologize to her son. Although it is unforgivable, that pain can gradually be forgotten. Su Hung hopes that Mr. Hung's car can continue to live a good life. It was for this purpose that she came to find him. But it seems that the trend is wrong and inadvertently adds to the pain in the heart of Mr. Hung's car. After Su Hung left, Mr. Hung's car opened the note paper clipped to his mother's relic. On it, there is Thuong Hung's phone number. On the other hand, Su Hua's ex-husband doesn't know why he became a famous journalist throughout Korea. That night, when he left his old house, he stumbled upon a trend. Meeting again after 6 years, the trend was extremely exciting. Su Hua just wanted to wipe the tears from her face, but she refused. Because in the perception of the trend, it was she who ruined the first money of the flower coin. So she hoped he would forget about her, get to know better people. However, Su Hua said that he had tried, but he still couldn't be so desperate. I can't forget my wife who has been with me for many years. And he knows that the words that the trend says are not sincere words, and said that this time he would never let go. Su Hung was extremely touched by the sincerity of her ex-husband. She also decided to start a new life with him, and the next day Su Hua brought Su Xiang home. Mrs. Mayung's attitude towards her daughter-in-law seems to have changed. She hugged the incense in her heart in front of her son. Bullying her around this time, she had suffered a lot. While eating, she also kindly picked up the dishes that she liked. However, after finishing the meal, Mrs. Mayung Ghi called the incense to the side, warning her not to misunderstand. She didn't accept her and blamed all the responsibility for her grandson's quality on her daughter-in-law. She thinks that if she hadn't come home that day, the tragedy would not have happened. Now a woman who wants to drag her son is a mother. She hates her to the core. He often said that if he didn't beg, Mrs. Mayung would definitely not give in. Therefore, she hopes that the trend will know her fate. After listening to Mrs. Mayung's teachings, Thong Hung collapsed to the point that he could hardly breathe. That night, Soo-ho had bullied Soo-seong, thanking her for accepting herself again. Then he took out a gift and also mentioned the vows when the two were married. Whether there is poverty or disease, I will overcome it with you. But the two had been apart for too long, so Soo-ho wanted to propose to her again. Thank you for accepting to come back to my side to continue my current life. Soo-seong was touched by Soo-ho's words and mistakenly thought that she could really trust him for the rest of her life. Unbeknownst to him, the conversation between the two was overheard by a guy in sneakers. Soo-hong and her husband returned to their old home and happened to meet the mother and daughter of the neighbors. Soo-ho looked quite panicked, immediately pulled his wife inside and said goodbye to the neighbor's mother and daughter. However, the feeling that this signal is not simple. Either she knew the truth about Soo-hong's son's quote or she was related to Soo-ho. On the other hand, the guy in sneakers investigates the relationship network of the trend. That includes Soo-ho and her sister. He put the photo in a document bag about to send to the trend. The next day, the couple participated in a television interview together. At the same time, the guy in sneakers handed the document bag to the staff. The staff had pocketed the documents in the break room. During the interview, Soo-ho was worried that Soo-hong would be heartbroken. So held her hand tightly and said that during this time, she had experienced the pain of losing her child. I hope everyone can understand her heartache. After the interview, Soo-ho stayed to thank the employees for their hard work. Soo-seong returned to the break room alone. As soon as she sat down, she saw a bag of documents sent to her lying on the table. The thing in her bag made her amazed. The husband looked kind and loved her wholeheartedly, but he avoided his mistress. This completely broke the perception of the trend. It turned out that the guy wore sneakers. It was the son of the driver who was hit by Soo-hong to death. After receiving the photo, the trend began to distance herself from her husband. She didn't know how to look back at the current relationship between the two. At that time, Dong-hong's mother and sister came to visit. It also eased the confusion in her heart. Yuji seemed to be very close to Soo-ho. Of course, the trend also notices that. But she thought simply, it was just a relationship between family members. The fact that my husband had a mistress that night kept hovering in my mind forever. Early the next morning, Soo-ho diligently cooked a bowl of porridge for his wife. And Yuji felt that something was wrong with her sister because the message she sent didn't get a reply. In addition, the fact that her sister left in a hurry last night made Yuji even more confused. At the same time, the trend is based on the date on the photo. Confirmed that the time the photo was taken was the date that she decided to divorce her husband. In the meantime, she executed the sentence and asked Yuji to send her husband a divorce petition. But the trend is still incomprehensible. After all, who sent these photos to me? She then asked the TV station staff. See if the other person remembers who sent it because the interview day is quite busy. The staff only remembered that the other party was a man. Coincidentally, at this time, Mr. Yuji's car also received an invitation to come here. At a glance, you know that the photo was taken with a camera. Use Cinema 800 to improve color film negatives. The person who took this image was a professional. Soo-hong is about to go home. The passers-by around recognized her. Everyone deliberately avoids listening. The Haeheim neighbor was also there, but she didn't pay attention to other people's eyes. Insist on bringing the trend home. Moreover, he was very enthusiastic about dragging her away. It turned out that Hai's son had epilepsy. Every time I get sick, I will foam my mouth. Only the son of the trend is not disparaging at all. Always cheer for her son and say he's not a monster. He is the most handsome footballer in the world. It was only later that the rare neighbor found out. The words that the boy said were all taught by the incense. So she is not worried that she will be talked about when she is close to the trend. This is also considered a kind of thanks. Anyway, Haeheim thinks that Soo-hong is a good mother. After returning home, Soo-hong frankly told Soo-ho about the photo. She wanted to hear her husband's explanation. The moment he saw the photo, he looked very nervous. After picking up the photo and observing it carefully, you can breathe a little bit. Actually, the trend has also been thought of in the past. If my husband left, he would probably like someone else. Otherwise, she would not have filed for divorce in the first place. Soo-ho admitted that he made a mistake when looking for a third person. But he didn't mean anything to the other party. He had even forgotten about that person's existence. Soo-seong said he could understand. Everything is over. She will not pursue anymore because the two have agreed to do it all over again. But there is one thing that the trend wants to make the corn come out of the potato. Because this image was sent to the TV station. So, does Soo-ho feel that anyone is suspicious? Soo coughed for a moment and said no. The next day, Soo-ho used his position to obtain surveillance video. Although he was able to capture the image of the photographer, he couldn't see his face clearly. On this side, Soo-seong asked Yuji to go out. Frankly saying that at first I asked her to hand over the divorce application was true, she wanted to give up the cough coin. But when her husband actually dates someone else, she feels sad. You should pay attention to this period. Yuji's reaction was fear, not surprise. She couldn't wait to know what the words of the trend meant in the end. Soo-seong slowly turned her head and said each word clearly to Yuji. Soo-ho was dating another woman. Someone sent him a photo of evidence. Yuji hesitated to ask if she knew who the other party was. Soo-seong said that he couldn't take a picture of that person's face. She felt that it was also good if she saw the other party's appearance. Maybe she will never forget it for the rest of her life. But there was one thing she couldn't understand. Who sent that photo after all? The sender seemed to be very interested in the woman. After hearing this, Yuji advised her to forget about it and start a new life. At that moment, she received a phone call and hurriedly left. And the cold trend looked at the direction the Yuji was leaving. That afternoon, Soo-ho secretly called the woman. Confirm if it was she who sent the image. After that, the two agreed to meet at the hotel to discuss in detail. At the same time, Mr. Hung's car found the person who sent the photo. He is the son of the driver who caused the accident. It turns out that Soo-jin, the friend of Mr. Seong's car, is a hacker. She helped him complete a lot of positioning and tracking tasks. On this side, Soo-hong called her husband to discuss. However, Soo-ho used the excuse of going to a meeting to eat crumbs. Coincidentally, when he was driving away, he was seen by the trend standing on the side of the road. It was obvious that the husband had lied. He must have been trying to hide something. So she immediately called a taxi and followed. Arriving at a remote hotel by the river, Soo-hong clearly saw her husband walking through the emergency exit. Instead of the usual elevator or stairs, she thought for a while and then followed him. But in a corner, she could only see the figure of the cough coin through the mirror. At this moment, the door of the room slowly opened, which no one expected. It was the person who opened the door turned out to be Incense. The moment he saw the appearance of this girl, Soo-seong was choked to the point that he almost couldn't breathe. It's like falling into a deep hole, where the sun doesn't shine. She stood in front of the door of the room for a long time, thinking about whether to rush in or not. But in his mind, he couldn't help but remember. The husband always cheats on her, and the neighbor always says that he wants to repay her. Waiting until she regained consciousness, she left the hotel bluntly. Here is a detail that Soo-ho once revealed. He has met Hye-hung many times in the cemetery. And Incense went to the cemetery to mourn their son. The trend stands in the outdoor parking lot until it gets dark. During this time, she was constantly thinking about how to solve this problem. She finally decided to clarify what she saw. Soon after, Soo-ho received a message that Soo-hong had sent. The content of the message said that now I know who you are with. After reading it, he couldn't help but be worried. Immediately rushed out of the room. Then he drove home, looking for his wife's figure from room to room, but he searched everywhere but still couldn't find it. He also didn't answer the phone. In fact, Soo-seong heard the ringtone. She guessed that her husband must have called more, and he had arrived home. At this time, she was about to return to the villa. But as soon as she arrived at the door, she immediately discovered her husband's car was identical to the car of the female neighbor Hye-gim. She finally realized how stupid she was. So she turned and walked towards Hae-gim's house. Soo Seong frankly asked why Soo-ho came to the hotel just now. Then she took out the photo and asked if the person on it was Hae. However, Hae did not admit nor deny it, but only constantly apologized, and say that when the incense is in prison, the two met many times in the cemetery. Hae shouldn't let that feeling get deeper and deeper. The confession basically coincides with the cough trend. Soo-hong wanted to know if the photo was sent by Hae. She immediately denied and apologized again. Soo-hong didn't get the answer she wanted, so she slammed the door and left. It could be recognized that Hae's expression was extremely humiliating. Soo-hong returned home without paying any attention to her husband. She went straight to the second floor. But why didn't this scumbag explain? He hopes to be able to talk kindly to his wife. He admits everything is wrong and constantly asks for forgiveness. He didn't confess for fear of losing his temper. But the trend thinks that no matter how it goes, that person can't be Hae Jian either. Even if she wanted to give in, this couldn't continue. After all, why send her a photo? After hearing this, Soo-ho guessed that someone must be trying to harm him. However, the trend was disappointed to the end. She didn't want the two of them to continue to hurt her family. So she decided to go back to her mother's house to live for a while. After his wife left, the expression on his face changed from love to anger. Soo-hong promised her mother that she would definitely find the person who sent this photo. But the old lady held her hand tightly. She thinks that doing so will only get more problems in her eyes. On the contrary, they will agree with the bad guys. She just hopes that her daughter can let go of the past and live a good life. That night, the incense trend would take pictures in small pieces. And Soo-ho just went to a hidden gold recycling store early in the morning, hire a retired police officer to investigate the courier who took that photo. Back at the TV station, Kim Jun was waiting for Soo-ho in the office. He accidentally mentioned the interview between the two husband and wife, and say that the relationship between the two people still looks as good as always. This sentence aroused the suspicion of the cough coin. He vaguely said his wife had received a pretty bad gift. If he found out that it was Kim Jun who did it, it would definitely cost him dearly. However, this reckless behavior succeeded in arousing Kim Jun's interest. He ordered the secretary to watch Soo-ho carefully. On the other hand, after hearing her mother's words, she tore up the photo. Din will live a good life. But as she cleaned a room, she stared at the debris in the trash can. The eye in his heart still couldn't be taken down. After all, who was the person who sent the photo, and what was his purpose in doing so? So she put the pieces together again. Unexpectedly, there was a URL link on the back of the photo. Soo-hong remembered very clearly that the back of the photo sent to her did not have this thing at all. She guessed that the person who sent the photo must have hidden some important information. So she immediately sat down at the computer and typed in the website address. What popped up was an article from a few years ago, talking about a 40-year-old woman who was hit by a truck and seriously injured. Obviously, the content and the photo have nothing to do with each other. But the trend noticed that the article was written by a reporter named Mira. First, she inquired from many sources and asked for the other party's email address. Then used the method of leaving a message via email to find out the news of that year's incident and ask Mira to contact me again. At the same time, Mrs. Hae called to invite Soo-hong to go shopping. Once she went all morning and she didn't care if her daughter-in-law liked it or not. But he insisted on buying her a lot of fat that he didn't use. Later, when the two of them entered the break room, she said her true purpose. It turned out that Mrs. Myung, when she heard that the trend had returned to her mother's house, she was worried that the news of the discord between the couple would spread. It affects her son's future, so she wants to warn her. If she decides to be patient and accept the past, at least you have to pretend that you have a little responsibility. It turns out that Mrs. Myung, when buying things for the trend, is as if she is apologizing to her on behalf of her son. But the attitude was quite the opposite. She said that she would not ask what happened to the couple. But she hoped that the stupid act of the trend would stop here. At the same time, she also reminded her to manage her emotions well when she was outside. How could Mrs. Myung not know what her son had done, right? Don't forget when the trend has just reconciled with the trend. She did not hesitate to scold her, now that her son had reached the name of morality. She turned around and taught someone who was not at fault in this matter. That night, Mrs. No sent a message to Soo-hung, lying that I was going out to play with some friends who would come home late. In fact, she was worried that if she went home, it would make her daughter even sadder, so she decided to stay at the salon. But when the trend received her mother's message, she immediately understood her heart and intentions. So I couldn't hold back my heart anymore. The tears kept falling, and I was often seen by Yugt. After finding out the situation, she angrily stopped the front of the car and asked him why he was secretly flirting with Hai DM. You pay attention to this detail, the conversation between the two is magical. And coincidentally, Hai DM saw it, and the next day the journalist Misa contacted the trend as details related to the article. Misa thinks that it should not be known that it will be better, but under the questions of the trend. Misa was still saying the content of the article, but it turned out that the woman who was hit by the car was named Kim Yoon-soo, currently being treated in my hospital, so that Soo-hung is doing. So Trendy immediately contacted me to ask me which hospital room Yoon-soo was in. At the same time, Soo-jin, a close friend of Mr. Seong's car, investigated out the boy in the form of a gambling addiction, often frequented the gambling pools, so Mr. Hung's car blocked his way. And, creating an unexpected accident, the two jumped down from the third floor one after another. This guy was seriously injured after the jump. Mr. Hung's car immediately took him to the hospital. On this side of the incense, with the help of Thor, she enters Yunsa's hospital room, and it's the wife of the driver she hit to death. At this moment, Mr. Hung's car also entered. It turned out that Mr. Hung's car took him to the hospital, but the injury was too serious. The doctor can only perform surgery if there is a signature of a family member. So Mr. Hung's car signed on behalf of his family. Then she walked into Yunsa's hospital room to make herself feel like she was his family. Then he happened to meet the trend. The incomprehensible trend asked why Mr. Hung's car came here. At this moment, Yunsu suddenly had an emergency. Mr. Hung's car immediately ran to the emergency room, but Soo-hung was hit by the scene in front of him. Aroused pain when watching her child dying. Fortunately, the doctor arrived in time to help Yunsu regain her mother's life. After this, Soo Seong asked Mr. Hung's car why he was so excited just now. He replied that it was because he didn't want to see anyone die. But after he finished answering, he looked very angry and bluntly left the hospital. Here the trend inadvertently knew. Mr. Hung's car and his best friend Soo-jin both have heart disease. The two have known each other at this hospital. Soo Seong thought for a while until it was morning. She still didn't understand the intention of the person who sent the photo. When leaving the link of the article behind the photo, what is it? She carefully read the article about the accident, suddenly remembering the words of the mass, saying that this accident was not accidental. So she immediately drove to the crime scene because the road here was winding. Most pedestrians cross the road from the intersection. In addition, the trend noticed that this road has a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour. After that, she asked her friends to investigate the verdict of the case. On the other hand, Soo-ho went to the old lady and frankly admitted the mistakes she had made. I hope she can give him one more chance. That sincere look was seen by the trend back home at the right time. So the next day, the couple reconciled again. That morning, the verdict of the case was sent. In the minutes, the speed of the driver who caused the accident at that time was 115 kilometers per hour. After finding out the end of the story, she called the journalist Misa to ask the other party. At that time, did the driver not know the speed limit on the road? And what does it mean to say that it is not like an accident? Misa said the driver's name lived in a nearby area, so there was no problem. He didn't know the speed limit on that road. On this side, he always felt that he had met Mr. Hoon's car but could not remember for the time being. At this time, he happened to meet a little girl with heart disease, so he immediately remembered who Mr. Hoon's car was. He hurriedly called the bride, who was sitting in the hospital room of the nun at this time. The phone should be muted to miss the call. When she saw the call and was about to call back, she happened to see Mr. Hung's car running into the hospital on 3 legs and 4 legs. Before she could say a word, she hung up and followed him. It turned out that the casino dunes found the hospital where the sender of the photo was lying. Since he owed 3,001, they were going to take his organs to pay off the debt. After learning about the car, Mr. Huan immediately ran over and rushed into a fight with the girls. Just now I was seen by a young man who came to see it. Fortunately, the security guard arrived in time and chased the Dokkan away, but he thought that Mr. Hoon's car should not live such a life. Few of his parents didn't want their son to go down the wrong path. But he angrily asked her what kind of status she had to say that. "You're a murderer," but that evening he brought his car some soup. She still couldn't understand the reckless behavior of Mr. Huan's car. He explained that because he had received so much help from her, he wanted to do something to help her. Finally, the misunderstanding between the two was removed. After that, Mr. Huan's car lit a fire, and the two sat next to each other and talked a lot. The car of Mr. Huan asked him if he wanted to meet his son. He thought for a while and finally chose no. The things that she wanted to do now, it is how to reduce the pain for the other person. After a while, Mr. Huan's car received a phone call from the secretary. It turned out that because Kim Jun wanted to get more votes. "So, I want to investigate the person who receives the most votes from women, especially Soo-ho." I didn't expect the scene of the two people meeting, saw by the former detective Han Sang. The next day, Soo-ho asked for a half-day leave to take Soo-hwan to a high-end restaurant. Seeing the chef perform the fiery processing made the snail realize the condition of Mr. Hoon's car and the child who was rescued from the fire that year were not the same. First, there were no burn scars on his body. Second, the psychology professor once said that the boy was very afraid of fire, and Mr. Horn's car was not afraid of fire. On this side, Mr. Dean's car went to the hospital room of the eel, quietly sat by the hospital bed, and held her hand tightly. It turned out that he was her biological son, and the child whose family was burned was Kim Min-hyuk. Mr. Hoon's car sent out his diary full of apologies to Min-hyuk, said that because of some personal affairs, he borrowed a little. It turned out that Mr. Hoon's car was the driver's son. Hit Soo-hwan's child because the accident and then ran away has been condemned by the public a lot. Therefore, on the day of the funeral celebration for my father, Jeong-ju was angry and smashed the funeral that day. Grace hugged her son tightly in her heart, not letting her reason with those plum gypsies. Of course, until the funeral was over, no one attended. But this was just the beginning of a nightmare. They all called Mr. Hoon's car the son of a pitiful person and often bullied him at school. And that's also the time when the seeds of hatred are sown in their husbands. That's why Mr. Hoon's car always tries its best to approach Soo-hoon. On this side, Soo-hwan and her husband were on their way to dinner, and they happened to meet the psychology professor. He gave Soo-hwan the address of Mr. Hwan's car. The professor was particularly interested in whether Soo-hwan was looking for the boy with burns, and whether she gave the boy the notebook or not. After listening, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was not right. First of all, Mr. Hoon's car is not afraid of fire. Secondly, there are no scars on the back. Logically speaking, the person who was burned could not be Mr. Hoon's car. Then why did the psychology professor send the address of Mr. Hoon's car to her? The most important thing is that it is clear that she never mentioned the diary. How do psychology professors know? Soo-hwan couldn't understand. At that time, Mr. Hoon's car called, but she did not answer. And more curious about this guy's life. Early the next morning, Mr. Hoon's car followed Soo-hwa to a restaurant. Accidentally took a photo of a flower to meet a person. It was former detective Han Sang, who was investigating Kim Jun's secretary. He accidentally took a photo of Mr. Hoon's car. However, the two of them didn't know that Soo-hwan was related to him. Soo-hwa doubted the photos she received. It was sent by this guy, and indeed he guessed correctly. At the same time, Soo-hwan went to the pagoda, where the couple's bones were burned. She saw a family photo of 3 placed on it. I accidentally remembered when I had just been released from prison, And to his son's wife, Mr. Hoon's car was also right next to him. It seemed to be worshipping someone. Could any relatives be buried there? Before he had time to think about the car that Mr. Hwan had called, invites Soo Hwan to have lunch with him, and the place is Soo Hwan's mother's restaurant. As soon as she heard this, she also seemed to understand what was happening. However, Mr. Hwan's car did not wait for Soo Hwan. After completing the payment, he stood up and left the shop. This side is Kim Jun because he wants to get more votes. So I persuaded Soo Hwa to tell him. However, Suho hated him to the core and left the country without saying a word. As it turns out, Suho thinks that if it weren't for Kim Jun, that irresponsible driver wouldn't be released. And Soo Hyan's affair wouldn't have to happen after that during his years abroad. Having grasped Kim Jun's weakness, Kim Jun has an illegitimate child. That year, someone made a fuss about the funeral of Mr. Hyan's father. Kim Jun didn't just show up at the right time to stop it. He also personally expressed his condolences to the father of Mr. Hyan's car. In addition, he also told Mr. Hyan's car that he would be your father in the future. This sentence is worth more than 1,000 words of comfort and makes Mr. Hyan's car untouched. So he sold his work network to Kim Jun after the two met at a small restaurant. Kim Jun convinces Mr. Hyan's car to go back to medical school. This makes Mrs. Eun Soo, who is lying in the sick forest, proud. But the reality is that he wants Mr. Hyan's car to keep working until he was elected president, but he said that as long as he was elected, he will definitely turn the case over on behalf of Mr. Hyan's car's father. Those eloquent words full of righteousness made Mr. Hyan's car move to tears. At the same time, Soo Hyan arrives at the car workshop where Mr. Hyan is working and finds something important. On this side, Hyan was a little worried, inadvertently remembering the conversation between himself and his brother-in-law Suho that night. It seemed that there was a secret between them that could not be told, and Soo Hyan kept thinking about it. Why didn't the photo take a frontal image of the woman who went up with her husband? The next day, the reporter sent a message to. She contacted the person in charge of the accident that year. Soon after, Soo Hyan made an appointment to meet this policeman. However, he remembered that there were no witnesses at the time, so the case was quickly closed. As for the driver who caused the accident, he is also unknown. Just remembering that their whole family had moved to another place, the victim's son posted a lot of messages asking for help. After Soo Hyan returned home, she went online to search for articles asking for help. In it, there was a comment line that caught her attention. The comment indicated that the person who was a classmate in medical school. Soo Hyan immediately remembered the appearance of Mr. Yeon's car trying to save Mrs. Eung-so when she was dying that day. It is clear that Mr. Yeon is a person who is knowledgeable in medicine or has studied medicine. So she went to her brother-in-law, a doctor who coughed, and asked about the boy who gave first aid to the patient last time. The two of them also wanted to contact Soo Hyan because of this. Mr. Yeon's car is a medical school classmate of T-ho and has undergone 3 search surgeries. After learning that Soo Hyan had gone to medical school on the public wall of the campus, she discovered the true identity of Mr. Yeon's car. Not long after, Mr. Yeon's car received a message from Soo Hyan. Wanting to make an appointment, Mr. Yeon's car immediately understood that the other party already knew his true identity. He had been looking forward to this day for a long time. It turned out that on the day Soo Hyan was tried, Mr. Yeon's car was also present in court. When she heard her say that if she could be re-elected, she would do the same. Mr. Yeon's car was hateful and could not take revenge on his father immediately. But Soo Hyan was sentenced to 10 years in prison, so he didn't have any chances. So during these 10 years, Mr. Yeon's car worked as a volunteer employee and was sent to prison. He had thought of all sorts of ways to get to know Soo Hyan in the end after a bribe from the prison guards. He learned that Soo Hyan had a very good relationship with Hyan RA in prison. Then, he planned to take revenge. Until the day the enemy killed his father was released from prison, Mr. Yeon's car has always followed Soo Hyan, and he also made a surprise encounter and helped her cover the rain. The guy wearing sneakers eavesdropping on the conversation between the two and his wife was also him. In addition, he often went to Soo Hyun's mother's restaurant and sat there. The reason he did this was because he wanted to take away all the things that Soo Hyun cherished. It turned out that when Soo Hyun walked into the car repair shop, she found the necklace left by his mother's car and the picture of the child inside the necklace. Exactly like the picture on the wall of the medical school. Only then can she be sure that Mr. Yeon's car is the son of the perpetrator who harmed her child. After the two met, Soo Hyun said that she didn't care how he treated her, but she didn't accept him touching her family. After the negotiation ended, Soo Hyun thought that she would live in peace. But he didn't know what Mr. Yeon's car wanted. It was that she had to see the scene of her family being ruined. So he had always been waiting for Soo Hyun to be happy again. That afternoon, Mr. Yoon's car arrived at the showroom opened by Hae Ji-eum. At this time, Hae Ji-eum was introducing the painting. It is a painting that tells the story of a male protagonist who is betrayed by two relatives. In the end, he killed his wife. After introducing him, Hae Ji-eum handed Mr. Yeon's car a picture. Ask him to send it to Kim Jun. Actually, the gallery is a place to launder money for Kim Jun to raise election funds. And Mr. Yeon's car on the outside is not completely obedient to his words. After receiving the painting, he immediately handed it to Soo Jin. Soo Jin found the USB drive well hidden in the picture. After that, he copied the evidence of Kim Jun's crime, and after doing it all, he fought to his hands. On this side, the former detective Han Sang investigated one thing. It was Soo Hyun and Sun Lee who had met, and as soon as they got home, Soo-ho came up with an excuse. The first thought was to ask his wife why she went to meet Mr. Yeon's car. Soo Hyun lies that he is the lucky child to escape the fire. If it does not create rumors, the influence will not be good. After speaking, he walked into the office, after searching for news related to the fire. He could almost determine that his wife was lying. The next day, when Soo Hyun visited the wilderness, just in time to see Kim Jun donating money to the hospital, she and the Wild sat and chatted, and the Wild told her, Mr. Yeon's mother's medical expenses are all paid by the charity fund. Soo Hyun immediately thought about it after hearing it. The person in charge of this fund was Kim Jun, who had donated earlier. So she began to keep an eye on him, watching him until she arrived at the villa, and accidentally saw Kim Jun enter Hae Ryam's house. It turns out that Hae Ryam is not only his wife, but also the person in charge of laundering money for him. Early the next morning, Soo Hyun was just about to go to work. Then he found a man speckled near his car. This person explained that a few days ago, his car met an unjust victim. In front of Soo Hyun's car, he wants to confirm whether the black box in his car can be filmed or not. Soo-ho was also in a hurry to go to work, so he handed the memory card to his wife and left to facilitate contact. The man wrote the date and phone number of the accident. The two parties agreed that after watching it, they would reply as soon as Soo Hyun entered the house and opened the driving record by day. She looked at all the spots and found that there were no accidents and no vehicles were touched. So she contacted the man again, and his phone number was written on the picture. It turned out that this man was sent by Mr. Hyun's car, and there was no car accident at all. And he just wanted to remind her that there was something she needed to see that day. Suddenly, there was a loud noise outside. Soo Hyun turned to look at one and ran out. It turns out that Hyun's son is sick, but no one dares to step forward to help. Soo Hyun immediately gave first aid to the boy, and at that moment Hyun also returned. Only then will the boy be safe and sound, while Hyun lets him into the restroom. Soo Hyun found that the water in the living room also had a date recorded, and the time completely coincided with a photo of her husband having an affair. And this time Hyun was abroad. In other words, the woman in the photo is not her. Hyun knew she was exposed, so she knelt on the ground and admitted that she had lied. She did this to protect her son. It turns out that Soo Hyun has come to Hyun before and made it clear that she knows that she is Kim Jun's little wife. Hopefully, she can work with her to expose Kim Jun's evil face. If you let him become president, surely he will not spare the wife who has his weakness in his hands. and his illegitimate son, too. In the end, Soo Hyun promises to protect Hiram's mother and daughter. In return, Hiram has to perform a play. That night, Soo Hyun clicked on a phone number. It turns out that the painting is by Francesca Zappallo. The content is about a person who is betrayed by two people he loves. She suddenly remembered the man who asked for help this morning. She met at the repair shop of Mr. Hyun's car. That is, she said that the other party wanted her to see the driver's record that day. Thinking about this, Soo Hyun's mother suddenly called to make an appointment for her to come to Yoog's store. Just as Soo Hyun arrives at the store is full of customers. So she walked into the office, but she was always worried in her heart. What did the black box get back in the end? So she used Yoog's computer to check. On the other hand, Yoog's biological mother came to find her. Her job was to sell flowers in her shop. When Yoog was a child, she often scolded her. At the same time, Soo Hyun saw a scene of self-concussion. Her husband's mistress was Yoog, and Mr. Yoog's car was sitting outside admiring everything that was going on in the store. Yoog's biological mother went to her daughter and secretly gave her a photo. Moreover, it is also profound to say that she must have moved something from her. Then he came back to remind Soo Hyun's mother to be careful in everything she did. It would be very heartbreaking to be betrayed by the person she trusted the most, and after speaking, she immediately left the store. And Yoog seemed to understand something, and for a long time, he still hadn't regained his composure. It turned out that Mr. Yoog's car had asked Yoog's mother to say these words. The purpose was to witness Soo Hyun's family. The person who killed his father fell into unfortunate pain, and on the other side, he looked at Yoog lying in his mother's arms sobbing. Soo Hyun now knew the truth, so she was extremely angry. She first made an excuse to let her mother go home first, and then frankly told Yoog that she knew everything. In this life, she could not forgive her behavior. Soo Hyun begged Yoog not to expect her to forgive in the future, and before she could finish the sentence, she left angrily. Soo Hyun sat in the car sobbing. She didn't expect that the people who betrayed her were the two closest to her. At the same time, Soo-ho receives a notification that Soo Hyun already knows who the woman in the photo is. He deeply regretted that he had committed that act. Soo-ho had just entered the living room, and at this time, Soo Hyun had taken off the wedding photo and thrown it on the ground. She didn't understand clearly that she had rejected him, why he was still looking for her for something. Even if the husband and wife divorce, the two should not do so. She had just lost her child and was still sitting in prison. What makes Soo Hyun heartbroken is not her husband's adultery. It was her husband and sister who had an affair with each other. She didn't even know anything, but she trusted and loved both of them. Soo-ho didn't say a word, but knelt down right in front of his wife. Not wanting to ask for forgiveness, Soo Hyun informed him that he was no longer his man. At this time, the relationship between the two was completely broken. Back in the bedroom, Soo Hyun's mind involuntarily remembered every moment with Soo-ho, and the intimate scene between him and his sister. That feeling of separation was painful. Initially, when Soo Hyun went to prison because she didn't want to get involved with her husband, so she resolutely filed for divorce from him. Yoog was worried about his brother-in-law, so he ran to comfort her. As a result, the two drank too much and made a mistake with Soo Hyun. Although the next morning the Yoog regretted it, he still built the boat and couldn't change it. The next day, Soo Hyun went to Yoog's mother and asked her how she knew where Yoog was working. She also didn't bother to hide it, frankly saying that someone told her. At that moment, Soo Hyun turned to leave, because she had guessed that the mastermind behind must have been Mr. Yuhan's car. That night, Soo-ho took the initiative to look for Mr. Yuhan's car, hoping that he could spare his wife. If you want revenge, just aim at him. Whatever the request is, he will fulfill it. It was okay to let the anger and hatred on him, but Mr. Yuhan did not agree. Because in his world, the pain that Soo Hyun endured was much less than his pain. Now besides Soo Hyun, who has lost two relatives, there is only one last person left. On the other hand, what did Soo Hyun meet in love? After careful consideration, she forgave her sister. Because she didn't want her mother to be sad when she found out about this, she chose to forgive. At the same time, Mr. Yuhan's car carrying an envelope entered Soo Hyan's mother's small restaurant. After reconciling with his sister Soo Hyan, he couldn't call his mother. As she hurriedly ran to her mother's restaurant, then the neighbor who was shooting was cleaning the food on the floor and said that he didn't know where Soo Hyan's mother had gone. Only the door was open to morning, and the ground was also very messy. Soo Hyan called back to her mother's phone number. On the other end of the line was the voice of Mr. Yuhan's car, and Soo Hyan rushed to the hospital. Coincidentally, Thal took over, and he said that Soo Hyan's mother was in a stable condition. It's just that the brain has a slight concussion. It was obvious that this action of Mr. Yuhan's car had reached the limit of Soo Hyan. She immediately called her lover to take care of her mother and hurriedly left the hospital. When Mr. Yuhan's car drove home, Soo Hyan suddenly appeared in front of the car. The two confronted each other for about 10 seconds. Mr. Yuhan's car derailed and ran straight with eyes full of hatred. He ran straight towards Soo Hyan. It was like the moment when she hit his father, driving straight past Soo Hyan. But he finally stopped in front of Soo Hyan. He thinks that the quality is not enough for Soo Hyan to compensate for his pain. At this time, Soo Hyan said that his mother's coma was not an accident. It's a precalculated case. Hopefully, Mr. Yuhan's car will not be taken advantage of by people with dark hearts for revenge. After returning home, Mr. Yuhan's car fell into a state of confusion again. Actually, he himself knew it very well. My mother was not in a car accident by chance. He is also collecting evidence and investigating clues, but he has not found anything over the years. At the same time, Soo Hyan shakes hands with Hae Ji-eum, preparing to give Kim Jun a fatal blow. The main continuation also officially began. For a long time, they have done a lot of investigations and collected evidence. Moreover, Hae Ji-eum is Kim Jun's baby wife. In her hands held his secrets and evidence of corruption. Just invite Hae Ji-eum to stand up and expose his true face in the main section. Public exposure is possible to give Kim Jun a fatal blow. However, the plan was not so easy to succeed. The three of them never expected. Mr. Hyan's car took a picture of them joining forces because he wanted to take revenge and tell Kim Jun before the next session begins. At the same time, Kim Jun also got an image of Soo Hyo having an affair with Hyo Ji. Before the relay began, Soo Hyo was bitten without a single pain. Hae Ji-eum, who was in the middle of the street, was also surrounded by Kim Jun's men. The original perfect plan has gone up in smoke. Kim Jun even approved his performance. Receiving more votes from the people, Kim Jun then called Hae Ji-eum. Intimidate her if she dares to do something stupid, then she will never see her son again. Although the boy is also his stepson. But because he could step up to a higher position, even his son could throw it away. At the same time, through this, Mr. Hyan's car also received Kim Jun's absolute trust. He brought Mr. Hyan's car to the power class where he was the center. Here, there is a lawyer with a sharp tongue that changes from white to black unfathomably. A judge who holds the power of biopsy in his hands. There is also a prosecutor who covers the sky with one hand after these people are combined. A person who deliberately ran over a 7-year-old child can be sentenced to a suspended sentence. And that person is the father of Mr. Hyan's car. But in the trunk of the car, Mr. Hyan also knew the obedient father absolutely never did anything that caused an accident. Then ran away in such an irresponsible way. But he couldn't find the wrong person to stand behind. That's why he poured all his hatred on Soo Hyan, because he was conservative and attacked his father. The next morning, Soo Ho's mother happened to hear rumors from friends. Rumor has it that someone saw Soo Ho kneeling in front of his wife. It seems that Soo Ho and Yoo Ji are secretly having an affair with each other. Soo Ho's mother immediately burst out laughing, saying that Soo Hyan and Yoo Ji grew up together. How could this happen like a sister? But then she hurriedly contacted her son. The monk coughed silently because he knew that the rumors were true. But her first thought was not to blame her son, which asked Soo Ho to quickly divorce Soo Hyan. but for the bright future of my son. The reason for divorce absolutely cannot be adultery. It wasn't long before Soo Hyun's mother finally woke up. She painfully felt injustice to her daughter. It was obvious that she had suffered such a great wetness, like having to be in front of my mother every day, pretending that nothing happened. After going out, Soo Hyun met Yuji, who was embarrassed and didn't dare to enter. At that time, Soo Hyun found out that her mother's fainting was not due to anxiety. It was my mother who guessed everything from Yuji's expression. Yuji, the demon to the ground, did not stop confessing to his mother. But this time, she wasn't easy with her anymore. Originally, when Yuji was tortured by his biological mother, her family kindly adopted her and treated her as her own daughter. I didn't expect that the last 20 years of raising him would end up being an ungrateful person. It is also the kind of person who specializes in turning around and biting himself. The old lady, who didn't respect the love of mother and daughter, ruthlessly kicked Yuji out of the house. However, the old lady could not bear the shock. As soon as Mr. Yun's car arrived to take revenge, then she fell to the ground, intending to take advantage of her to take revenge on Soo Hyun. But in the end, Mr. Yuhan's car could not deal with a kind mother. It turned out that he often came here to eat, and the old lady also took care of him like her own child. Therefore, Mr. Yuhan's car took Mrs. Gu-eun to the hospital in time. So when she heard the phone, Soo Hyun called her mother, waiting until Soo Hyun ran over. Mr. Yuhan's car, which was silently waiting, also breathed a sigh of relief. Soo Hyun then goes to the front desk of the hospital to check their registration documents. She realized that she had blamed Mr. Yuhan's car by mistake. She discovered that Mr. Yuhan's car wanted to destroy her, which was not out of medicine. The next day, when Mr. Yuhan's car was working at the car repair shop, suddenly received a call from the hospital. Mom, who has been struggling in the hospital for many years, has taken her last breath. Soo Jin helps to organize simple funerals, but when classifying relics, then she found a mobile phone in her clothes. On the phone are the words she left for her son before he fell into a coma. Mr. Yuhan's car hid in the room and listened to it all afternoon. Soo Hyun learned about this from numbness. She changed her clothes to attend the funeral. Mr. Yuhan's car didn't stop him before Soo Hyun left. He even pulled her hand. When Mr. Yuhun got out of the car, he heard the recording of his father being hit by Soo Hyun in the mobile phone left by his mother. At that time, his father was talking on the phone with his wife. Suddenly, he met Soo Hyun, who momentarily forgot to hang up the phone. Mrs. Grace also conveniently recorded the call. After finding out at that time, Soo Hyun only asked her father to apologize. But he said arrogantly, it was the child who rushed into the front of his car. The image of the great father in the trunk of Mr. Yuhan's car collapsed. At this time, he deeply realized that how angry Soo Hyun was at that time. Seeing Soo Hyun coming to visit his mother, Mr. Yuhan's car was going to apologize on behalf of his father. But when faced with the person who also killed his father, Mr. Yuhun finally couldn't speak. The next day, when Mr. Yuhan's car picked up his mother, Kim Jun also rushed over. He pretended to comfort Mr. Yuhan's car and asked hesitantly, before he lost his mother, did he leave anything behind? Knowing that Mr. Yuhan's car could not go to see his mother for the last time, Kim Jun was relieved now, but he didn't know that the last sentence that Mr. Yuhan's mother said about the tablet, Soo Jin heard. After that, Soo Jin reported to Mr. Yuhan's car. Mr. Yuhun remembered what Kim Jun had asked him this morning. Then he immediately realized that his mother's car accident was definitely related to Kim Jun. At the same time, Mr. Yuhan's car received a call from Soo Hyun, and she made an appointment to meet at the place where Mr. Yuhan's mother had an accident. It turned out that during the investigation, she found many important clues. Through the reporter reporting on the car accident of Mr. Yuhan's mother, Soo Hyun took a few photos, then she turned to a professional traffic accident lawyer. Through a lawyer to evaluate the wheel slips on the photo. The driver who caused the accident apparently hit Mr. Yuhan's mother and then slammed on the brakes. And the entire driving trajectory was not driven at all, proving that the enemy's goal was very clear. It was an intentional murder. There were also witnesses. Before the truck started, it had stopped at the intersection long ago, until the mother of Mr. Yuhan's car appeared. The truck started immediately and rushed straight into the victim without hesitation. At this time, Mr. Yuhan's car remembered the time when his mother had an accident. Kim Jun immediately went to the hospital room and said that he would pursue it to the end so that the perpetrator would pay the price he deserved. But Mr. Yuhan's car was never expected, and the next day the police convicted him and said it was an ordinary traffic accident. The driver who caused the accident only needs to pay a sum of money to be acquitted. Wait until he finds the perpetrator's house. He and his wife moved out in the middle of the night, without knowing that the mastermind behind everything is Kim Jun, because the mother of Mr. Yuhan's car knew that the person who hit the person was Kim Jun. Although her husband, because of the cost of Mr. Yuhan's car's surgery, he took the blame on Kim Jun's behalf. But her husband did, driving the car over the poor child to death while he was still breathing. So she didn't blame Soo Yuhuan for taking revenge and bumping into her husband. Later, when she learned that Soo Yuhuan had been sentenced to 7 years in prison, Mr. Yuhan's mother called Kim Jun. The request for Soo Yuhuan to be acquitted, otherwise she would expose everything. But I didn't expect that Kim Jun had wanted to kill people for a long time, and she was knocked to the ground by a long-awaited truck. In front of Mr. Yuhan's car, he pretended that he was going to try to catch the perpetrator. But in fact, he had arranged for the other party to flee a long time ago. Not long ago, Soo Yuhuan also found the driver's wife through clues. And knowing everything, Kim Jun himself took out the love fund, saying that he would pay for the surgery for their child. Let the driver's name hit the mother of Mr. Yuhan's car in his place. With these clues, Soo Yuhuan realized the reason why Kim Jun wanted to kill Mr. Yuhan's mother was definitely because of his father. And the only key thing related to his father was the quality of Soo Yuhan's son. It is very likely that her son's dick is also related to Kim Jun. The next day, Soo Yuhuan recalled, a few days before Soo Ho was packing up his luggage, he secretly hid a box. She immediately found the box and discovered that she had been investigating for her son, all the people involved in his son's case. And finally, the core point was all towards Jin Jun. She immediately looked for a cough and asked, "Why are there already such important clues?" Gave up the investigation without expecting that Soo, who excused himself to be weak in the first place. So, he gave up the confrontation with the powerful parliamentarian Soo Yuhuan couldn't believe. As a father, he can give such a reason. If he does not dare to fight against power, then it can only be done by this mother. However, Soo Yuhuan didn't even expect that she had just left Soo Ho's house. Soon after, Soo Ho contacted Kim Jun. He used to have to take down Kim Jun even if he could, yet he decided to join his coalition to help him sit in the presidency. The only reason is that he also wants power. The next day, Soo Yuhuan met Hai Ji-yoon in the library. Hai Ji-yoon said goodbye to Soo Yuhuan. Soon she will go abroad with her son. But Soo Yuhuan already knew part of the truth. I couldn't understand a gentle and kind person like Hai Ji-yoon. Why take the side of the bad guys to help the evil Kim Jun? Moreover, he kindly advised his own son, Hai Ji-yoon, not to continue living like that. But Hai Ji-yoon, because she was worried about Soo Yuhuan. He also reminded Soo Yuhuan not to try to resist Kim Jun. Taking the egg to fight and kick only hurt her. But Soo Yuhuan put his life and his quote aside. However, it was this great maternal love that caused Hai Ji-yoon to provide Soo Yuhuan important clues before leaving. The day Soo Yuhan's son died, he took a tablet out of the house. This news made Soo Yuhuan very worried, so she contacted Soo Ho while searching. But suddenly Soo Yuhuan remembered what Mr. Yuhuan had said. His mother's last words also mentioned the tablet. And Soo Yuhan's call just now made Soo Ho recall something. At the same time, Mr. Yuhan's car also began to think, what important details have I missed? So he tried to look it up on his mother's phone to see if he could find anything more. However, a recording of the father leading the mother needs to preserve something well. It reminds Mr. Yuhan's car of the scene 7 years ago. Mother gave him a necklace and led him to take care of it. This made Mr. Yuhan's car immediately recognize. The secret item mentioned in her mother's recording is this necklace. At this time, Su Yuhuan also knocked on the door. But after Su Yuhuan said his speculation, Mr. Yuhan's car couldn't help but be confused. She assumed that the tablet his mother had been talking about belonged to her son. Mr. Yuhan's car also felt a little strange. He took out the necklace and told the whole story and his doubts. This made Su Yuhuan and Mr. Yuhan's car both turn their eyes to this necklace. And the result was just as the two expected. There was indeed a secret hidden inside. So Mr. Yuhan's car immediately turned on the computer. Insert the memory card and read the information in it immediately. The first is the image of a pawn shop. The second is after the tablet is mortgaged and the bill is issued. Su Yuhuan immediately got up and ran to the pawn shop. Mr. Yuhan's car also followed closely behind Su Yuhuan and successfully blocked her stalker. Su Yuhuan carefully took the mortgaged item. And it was indeed the tablet that her son had just picked up in an accident. Hold the tablet in your hand. Inside recorded every bit of her son's growth process, making her cry out. Especially on the day my son met with me, he recorded a happy birthday song for his mother. It made Su Yuhuan even more heartbroken, but I don't know what happened that caused the dog to run out of the house. So Ganwu had to stop recording and chase the dog. It was also because of this small matter that the boy was hit by a car afterwards. At the same time, Mr. Yuhan's car also escaped from his stalker and ran to Su Yuhan's house. Although there are no images on the screen at this time, but the sound coming from within caught Su Yuhan's attention. This man's voice was too familiar, and his liver wound didn't seem to be seriously injured. And the ensuing conversation between the two men left Su Yuhuan completely devastated. On the day of the incident, Mr. Yuhan's father had been drinking with Kim Jun. But after he receives a mysterious phone call regarding his son's motherhood, so Mr. Yuhan's father said goodbye to Kim Jun and hurried to the hospital. And Kim Jun, after being devastated, also drove to his lover's residence. At the same time, Ganwu ran out into the street with the tablet in his hand. Before that, Kim Jun had drunk a lot of alcohol. Moreover, he was driving inattentively. So the tragedy began, and at first, Kim Jun was extremely frightened, instinctively wanting to call an ambulance. But he hesitated at the last rope. Even start observing if there are any monitoring devices installed around this area. And after making sure it's safe around, immediately picked up Ganwu and put him in the car after confirming that no witnesses saw it. He quickly drove away from the scene. At this time, Mr. Ilhan's father also rushed to the hospital, but his son's condition was critical. If you don't have heart surgery, you won't have much longer to live. At this moment, the phone rang, and the person on the other end of the line was Kim Jun. Waiting for the father of Mr. Ilhan's car to arrive at the agreed location, he found that Ganwu was not seriously injured. I can still cry and call my mother. So the father of Mr. Ilhan's car immediately said that he should take Ganwu to the hospital. But Kim Jun's next words changed his mind, because Ganwu had already seen Kim Jun's face if drunk driving was exposed. His dream of becoming president would be shattered. He couldn't stop just because he stepped on a bug. So Ilhan's father wants his son to be able to live. And that thought in front of him turned him into a bloodthirsty demon. So after the two agreed on a plan, Ilhan's father put the liver and the tablet in his car. At this time, he looked back at the innocent little life behind him again, and he was also hesitant in his heart. But thinking of the son who is struggling between life and the little, causing him to make up his mind, the wheel rolled over innocent lives mercilessly. Then he took the dying little liver Wu with him, leaving him in a sparsely populated park. But Ilhan's father was ruthless. Now that the truth was unfolding in front of him, the heart of Mr. Ilhan's car was like being cut by 1,000 knives. He couldn't even face reality. He ran out of Su Yuhan's room. He didn't dare to believe that his father could do it for him, but kill someone else's beloved child. Finally understood why my mother didn't let me take revenge. And the sad thing is that all of this stems from him. And Su Yuhan in the room was in so much pain that he couldn't bear it anymore. A heartbreaking cry like thousands of steel needles piercing the heart of Mr. Ilhan's car. But now he can't do anything about it. On the other side, Kim Jun realized the danger and began to imply that Soo Ho-hun should take good care of his wife. Although Soo Ho-hun still didn't know what the other party meant. But from his expression, it was recognizable. In Kim Jun's hands, he definitely grasped what his weaknesses were. At the same time, Soo Ho-hun calmed down and began to counterattack. She filed a complaint against Kim Jun. At the same time, Soo Ho-hun also received a reply message from Soo Ho-hun, telling him about the tablet, but these words made Soo Ho-hun raise his eyebrows. And Mr. Yayan's car is in a state of deep self-blame. He was even beaten by the provocateurs, but he didn't resist even the slightest. Maybe that's the only way, making his heart filled with guilt get a little balanced. As for Soo Ho-hun, even though he knew Kim Jun's background, he couldn't be touched. But her determination to take revenge made her not hesitate. At the same time, Mr. Yayan's car also arrived at the cemetery, giving flowers and small gifts to Ganwoo. But the important thing is that Mr. Yayan's promise to Ganwoo will definitely protect his mother. Therefore, in the silent night, two figures appeared at the same time. A person who does not want the person behind him to bear the guilt left by his father. The other person was extremely guilty, wanting to do something to make up for the person in front of him. This was also the first time Mr. Yayan's car stood in front of the enemy who had killed his father, shedding tears of regret and shame, because he finally knew what is called good, what is called evil. The father turned into a demon in order to save his life, pities Soo Hyan's only son. Although he finally paid for his life at the hands of Soo Hyan, but now Mr. Yayan's car also understands what is called the heavenly path of reincarnation, what is called tolerance and kindness. And what Mr. Yihan needs to do now is not simply to blame his father. Above all, to help Soo Hyan take revenge on the person who created all this tragedy. It was Kim Jun who covered the sky with one hand, but the result was beyond Soo Hyan's imagination. The press conference was prepared to expose Congressman Kim Jun. Yet no one attended. On the contrary, Congressman Kim Jun is running for the presidency. It is very welcome, but most importantly, Soo Ho knew that Soo Hyun wanted to start a war with Kim Jun, but he stabbed his wife in the back, opening the clothes and taking away the most important evidence that Soo Hyan had stored in it, and giving it to Kim Jun and Jin Jun. After obtaining the evidence that caused this loss of life, also immediately destroyed it, because he knew that as long as the evidence was not the original, it was not worth a penny in its entirety. This action of Soo Kof made Soo Hyan completely silent, but in the face of Soo Hyan's question, Soo Ho didn't hide it at all and immediately admitted. At the same time, he told Soo Hyan not to be under the illusion that it is possible through the media to attack Kim Jun, because that action is just useless. Moreover, Soo Hyan is also in danger because of that. Although Soo Hyun is forced to tell the truth of the matter, that his son's accidents were all caused by a needle Jun, but Soo Ho seems to have made up his mind to let Soo Hyan know and stay away. Could it be that Soo Ho wanted to oppose Soo Hyun to the end? But these attacks didn't seem to be able to take down Soo Hyan. However, how can he escape from the power of Kim Jun? On this side, even though Mr. Ian's car had prepared to pass, but because she was ashamed, she didn't dare to enter her restaurant, but she saw him. However, Mr. Ian's car did not expect that Mrs. Guggen was the same as Soo Hyan. Not only did he not hate him completely, but on the contrary, he also advised, "Don't make yourself miserable because of hatred." But she didn't know that all the hatred in Mr. Ian's car. Now they all point to Kim Jun, and at the same time, they also ask their friends to find them. Victims who were harmed on the way to Kim Jun's presidential campaign, despite the arduous process. But at last they find the poor victims who were harmed by him. But these people were afraid of Jin Jun's power. Therefore, he has not yet accepted to join the procedural coalition. Seeing that it was very difficult for me to find the victims, now that the tail ran away, Mr. Ian's car finally spoke. He told others about all the misfortunes he had experienced. The victims saw that the people next to Mr. Ian's car were all so miserable, they did not hesitate anymore. Immediately agreed to sign the denunciation of eliminating the common enemy. On the other hand, just as Soo Hyun predicted, the case she asked to investigate was deliberately ignored by the police, and so Hyun also had a way to respond. However, the message that Mr. Ian's car sent made Soo Hyun extremely surprised. It turns out that the reason why Mr. Ian's car collects information about the victim is because he wants to support Soo Hyun's next actions. And the way Soo Hyun dealt with Kim Jong-un was to enter the literary world she was once proud of, using self-talk to expose the true face of the former market under the cloth in addition to hypocrisy. Soo Hyun also revealed the culprit of the entire incident. That is the candidate for the presidency of Kim Jong-un. The reason why Soo Hyun chose the press conference to launch the literary work, exposing Kim Jong-un's crimes against his son. It's all the credit of Soo Hyun's sister. Because in the past, when Soo Hyun was a writer who did not have a reputation and was struggling to find a place in literature, then Eug used to be her manager. Now there is a producer contacting Eug. Hope Soo Hyun can return to the world of literature. So Eug was single-mindedly trying to make amends and help his sister, finally finding an opportunity. So Soo Hyun borrowed the press conference to launch this book to tell the unfortunate story that her son encountered. Let everyone know through the power of media. Therefore, the police, under pressure from all walks of life, finally accepted Soo Hyun's application to reinvestigate the case. At the same time, Suho, in the face of this wave of public opinion, kept an extremely bladder attitude. It makes colleagues suspect that Suho has been dominated by power and money. And on the other side, after Soo Hyun provided enough evidence to the police, he also took a breath because, without the help of Mr. Hyun's car, things wouldn't have been so smooth. And Kim Jun on this side was too angry and a little bit put all his anger on the secretary. But the truth also makes Kim Jun a little helpless because no one could have expected that Soo Hyun would be able to pass the press conference for the book launch. A few legs of Congressman Kim's scandal. Moreover, Mr. Hyun's car shook hands with Kim Jun's enemy. So from the beginning, everything was out of control. But Kim Jun didn't admit defeat so easily. So he asked the secretary to find a recording, the call of Soo Hyun's father to Soo Hyun that year. Then stood in front of the media to announce this recording in the recording of Soo Hyun's father, blaming Soo Hyun's son for crashing into his car himself. Since then, it has affected his business, so Kim Jun said. Just like the content in the recording, the person who collided with Soo Hyun's son was not himself, but his father. After these expressions of Kim Jun, the direction of public opinion has obviously changed. At the same time, he said that Soo Hyun and Mr. Hyun's car are the same thing. They are colluding with each other to spread false rumors to smear Congressman Kim. Therefore, the lawyer reminded Soo Hyun not to get too excited. But Soo Hyun didn't think so. She fought to the last moment. And all Soo Hyun does is silently protest. However, Soo Hyun's actions affected both sides. Eug, after seeing his sister's protest, volunteers rally to support Soo Hyun. On the other hand, Kim Jun took advantage of Suho's weakness. Ask him to manage his ex-wife well. Mr. Hyun's car directly flips the card upside down with Kim Jun. Ask him if the inspector can become president. The words of Mr. Hyun's car completely angered Kim Jun. He squeezes the neck of Hyun's car and regrets that he didn't take care of Soo Hyun. However, Mr. Hyun's car reversed the situation, seeing that he was about to lose control, but fortunately, he could still hold back. So, why would someone who is always as smart as Mr. Hyun's car do this? It certainly has its own purpose. However, Mr. Hyun's car underestimated Kim Jun's cunning. Not only did Mr. Hyun teach his car a lesson, a recording device was also found on his body. At the same time, Soo Hyun's perseverance also gradually touched everyone, and then she didn't have to fight alone anymore. But Kim Jun won't let Soo Hyun threaten him like that. So he gave orders to his subordinates, deliberately destroying Soo Hyun's protest site. In a moment, the scene became extremely chaotic. Fortunately, at this time Mr. Hyun's car appeared in time. And this chaos caused the opposite reaction, helping So Hyun gain more and more supporters. However, the presidential race has come to the last moment. No matter how hard you try, it will be in vain, but at this moment the audience supports Kim Jun. Attracted by the big screen in the square again, Suho surprises for the live stream and broadcasts live video of Kim Jun's profound actions. I'm afraid that Suho accepts to be his henchman because he wants to take advantage of him. The fact that the opponent knows his weaknesses. So in addition to pretending to obey him and cut ties with close friends, but in fact, it is a cooperation with Mr. Hyun's car, and this video immediately tore apart his deep face. But just like that, it is still not possible to make people lose faith in Kim Jun. So Suho unleashed his ultimate move. He took out his son's tablet, and the content inside is the whole process that Kim Jun and the father of Mr. Hyun's car planned to swirl the scallops. After that, Suho quit his role as a host, as a father, and a citizen, recounting the crimes that Kim Jun has committed. And after Suho says it all, people are still blindly trusting Kim Jun to suddenly wake up. No matter how much Jin Jun tried to save him, it would have no effect. And after Suho had done all this, he finally couldn't hide his sadness. At the same time, Kim Jun also wants to order his secretary to solve this crisis. But the result made him look at the letter A, the letter O. It turned out that Mr. Hyun's car had clearly investigated all the deep things that the secretary had done for Kim Jun, including killing his biological mother. So, after the secretary was successfully persuaded by Mr. Hyun's car, secretly used a camera to record all the profound things that Kim Jun has done. And then what Kim Jun had to face was the punishment of the law. Justice has finally defeated evil. This made Mr. Hyun and Suho's car extremely emotional. The two looked at each other and couldn't help but shed tears. As the saying goes, the loser comes to the end. Every crime that Kim Jun has committed is investigated one by one. Hyun also fulfills her promise to Soo-yeon, testifying in court for his crimes. In the end, Kim Jun was sentenced to life imprisonment for committing a crime in heaven. And Soo-yeon finally knew. The reason why Gangwoo had an accident that year was because Soo-yeon didn't close his house. And this video was taken advantage of by Kim Jun, threatening Suho to abandon the investigation into him. Therefore, everything Suho does is because he is afraid that Soo-yeon will no longer have the courage to live. But will the two ever get back together again? Soo-yeon and Yuji become good sisters again. Sehong Hyun also regains her dream of becoming an excellent doctor. Soo-yeon continues to become a well-liked writer. The story also ends here. Thank you for watching this movie. See you in the next movie.